to us, destination marketing is not about tourism. It's about economic development and the betterment of your own community. We're just doing it through tourism and through meetings and conventions and so on.
Okay, guys, since we started the Destination Marketing Podcast a little over a year ago, I've had several destinations reach out and say, hey, could you help me start a podcast? And at first we were kind of like, well, no, that's not really what we do. But after enough requests, we said, you know what, let's explore this. And we've created a turnkey program for destinations where we will produce, we will host, we will edit, and we will publish your podcast for your destination on a weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly basis. And all you have to do is show up and answer some questions. We're really excited about this program. We've got a few destinations that have been doing really, really well with their podcast. And if you've ever thought about creating a podcast for your destination, but you don't have all the equipment, or you don't have the expertise or any of that type of stuff, let us take that off your hands. Let Relic handle your podcast creation and production, and all you have to do is show up and answer questions about all the amazing things there are to do within your destination. So let me know if you're interested. Email me at adam@relicagency.com and we'll get you set up on this podcast program. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Destination Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Stoker. We've got a great show for you today. It's a destination that it's on my list. I haven't been there in person yet, but it's been fun to learn about this destination over the last couple of weeks. And we have with us Patrick Harrison from Tampa Bay, Florida. Patrick, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Adam. It's good to be here. Hopefully I'll be as entertaining as the last few guests you've had.
Well, you know what? I can't pick favorites, and so we won't tell you if you're not, but we'll look at the numbers.
All right.
Well, thanks for coming on. We've got a couple of questions that we like to ask everybody right at the beginning just to get the conversation going. First, I've got to know, and you're well-traveled, so this might be hard, but if there's anywhere in the world you could go, what's your dream destination?
Cool, that is a tough question. I've lived in quite a few countries, and I've been very fortunate to visit a whole bunch. I do tend to love cities and history more than beaches, probably because I live in the sunshine. So when I go on vacation, I get away from it. So I like London, New York, Berlin. I think right now my wife's Russian, so if I don't say Moscow, and I haven't been there yet, she would kill me. So I'll go with Moscow, but also in a COVID-19 world. And I know I said not so much the sunshine, but you know those pictures you see of those little beach huts out in Bali or Tahiti that are out in the ocean?
Yes.
That looks really good right now. Socially distancing from the rest of the world right there. That sounds perfect.
You know what? And you're not alone, because I think travelers today are now looking for ways that they can social distance, which to me is a little concerning for some of the destinations that you mentioned, like, New York, London, and some of the other more densely populated or densely traveled destinations. It's changing the way people look at their getaways.
I think it is, but right now, because we're still in the midst of this health crisis, it's one of those where people are looking at things different in the way they did. But, tourism and travel is resilient. I don't know if you remember, after 9/11, everyone stopped traveling, and then they came back. After the crash in 2008, 2009, everyone stopped traveling, and it came back. I think once we get this thing under control, once people learn to take some personal responsibility and stop acting like adolescents, or once we get some kind of vaccine or antibody that we all feel is effective, I think people will get over this fairly quickly. I know that sounds at the moment tough to believe, but throughout history, that's exactly what's happened. So I have no doubt that these places are going to see some folks coming back. I mean, look at New York now. I mean, their numbers are down. I mean, the only reason they're not getting more travelers is because they won't let us in at this stage. So the minute that we get things under control, we'll be back there again.
Yeah, I think you're totally right, and I love that you bring the perspective of the previous crises that have happened. And I can't remember who I was talking to recently, but we have a generation of people in the destination marketing industry that didn't go through 9/11 or the Great Recession as part of their careers, and so they've experienced 10 years of sustained growth without actually experiencing a crisis.
Right.
But those that have been through it before, the travel industry always comes back. And not only does it come back, it gets to record highs every time. It continues to grow. And I think that's a good perspective to have as you're looking at this crisis.
Yeah, everything is cyclical. It's not just the travel industry; it's everything. You can't just keep on going up, up, up forever. And yeah, we've had, record quarter after record quarter, even going into February of this year was our best February in forever. And we were about to host WrestleMania and a bunch of other stuff. And the rest of the year looked like it was just going to be so good and so off the charts. And we were so proud of ourselves. Well, sometimes you need a slap in the face to take you back to square one and make sure that you do things right.
Well, we definitely all got that slap in the face for sure. Well, Patrick, before we go any further, I think we've kind of gotten ahead of ourselves here. I still need to know your favorite trip you've ever been on.
Oh gosh, that's tough. Again, I lived in Sydney, Australia. I honeymooned in St. Petersburg, Russia. I took the kids to San Francisco last year. To me, though, I just there's something, maybe because I'm English or was English. There's something about London. Every time, just being in London, every time I get the chance to go back to London, I discover new things and the history and the bars and the nightlife and everything else. I think to me that's still the place that beckons me.
Give us an experience from London, a little nugget that could maybe help us move London up our list.
Well, there's a couple of places I tend to take people when we're over there on business trips if they haven't been before, and they're right next to each other. There's a bar on Embankment right down by the river. By Embankment Tube Station called Gordon's, and it's only sells wine and port, no beer, no nothing else, and it's been there forever. And you go down into the cellars, and the cellars probably haven't been cleaned in over 100 years, but that's where you buy the drinks, and it is just so emblematic of the UK. And then right up the street from that, not that I haven't got a track record of drinking, but there's another bar called the James Joyce, and that's where during we're going back like 300 or 400 years now. That's where Samuel Pepys wrote his Diaries of London. Sorry, it's not called the James Joyce. I don't know why I said that. It's called the Nell Gwyn, named after the mistress of Charles II. Okay. So it's, again, very old, several hundred years old. The ceilings are about 5 feet high. And if you have had a couple of drinks and you try and get to the bathrooms, which are down some very steep and narrow stairs, you better be careful because you're going to probably bang your head on the ceiling.
Man, okay. Sounds like a couple of great places to check out when we go to London. That's good stuff.
You'd enjoy it, trust me.
Okay. All right. I like it. Well, tell us a little bit about you, Patrick, and your background and how you got into tourism.
Well, I started out actually wanting to be a journalist, and did that for a couple of different newspapers. I think we all saw the writing on the wall early that was not going to be a growing long-term career. I actually switched into public relations, worked in London for a few years, and then came over to Florida. Ended up being part owner of an advertising and PR agency in Tampa, and not really in tourism. I mean, of course, if you're in Florida, you're always going to have some kind of tourism clients, but it was really more alcohol, wine and spirits, and plus some other industries. In 08, 09, when everything crashed, our agency, we merged into a bigger one, and their forte was and still is tourism and hospitality marketing. So here I was living in Tampa, representing 5 or 6 different destinations, within the state and Caribbean, and but I wasn't doing Tampa. So I did probably about 10 years of Florida-based tourism before I got an opportunity to switch into Visit Tampa Bay and this position.
Wow, great stuff. Okay, so and your current role at Visit Tampa Bay,
Chief Marketing Officer.
Chief Marketing Officer. Okay, perfect. Well,
Sounds
so you've
sounds
been on.
sounds very big and official and so on, but we're only a small small group, so it's not like I'm overseeing thousands of people. So basically,
Just hundreds.
it would basically just really a tight knit team that I get to take responsibility for.
Good stuff. Well, you've had the opportunity to sit on both sides of the table as an agency and as a destination. Tell me a little bit about the, advantages, disadvantages, or experiences that come along with having been on both sides.
Well, I mean, there are advantages to both. I mean, I think to me, I don't know if I'm slightly ADHD or I'm just easily bored or have very little patience. But what I liked about the agency side was the juggling of several clients, and there was always something going on. There was always something new and creative, and I never thought I would be able to really move away from that. I think though after 20 odd years of doing things on that side, I thought the opportunity to give 100% of my attention to one cause would be something I really wanted to try and see. And I think we're a little different here than most destinations, as at least in the state of Florida. And we're not part of the county government. We're a private 501c6, not for profit.
Okay.
So we don't have some of the hindrances or challenges that they do. I mean, I don't have to answer to a county government. So basically, we can operate just like an ad agency. We can decide what we want to do. We can be high speed. We can be highly creative. We're research focused. We can beta test things. We can do things that nobody else ever done before. And we can make that decision in an instant, just like you can when you sit on the other side. And I think that I think was great to be able to bring the knowledge of how things work in an agency into what is in effect an in-house agency, which is what we have now. Of course, the fun part is, at least for me, and maybe not so for our agencies of record, is that I know exactly how they operate. So, I understand on the benefit side for them, I understand their needs and their processes and how quickly they think, we need to turn things around. But I also know agency BS when I see it. So, it gives me an opportunity. So, basically they'll have all learned very quickly not to try and BS me, because I will call them on it. And, to me, I think maybe that's just led to a stronger relationship.
Yeah, I like that you have the ability to understand what they need from you. You've seen it from their side of the table, so you know how to make their life easier and how to help them help you. But at the same time, you also know how to see through something when it might not be right, or when you're not exactly getting blown away by the performance. And I think that's a really good perspective to have, because so many destination marketers end up using an agency. And that perspective would be so helpful for so many people.
I think you're right, and I think that there's several things it brings to the table, and the fact that the relationship can be different. We discussed early on. If I brought in these specific agencies or through RFP processes because I wanted their expertise, things that were outside of what we can do internally, we need their strengths. The last thing we want from an agency is somebody who wants to just do whatever I want, just to keep the contract. The whole point of hiring, whether it's a person or a group, is to add to the equation, is to add to the whole and make everything exponentially better. So I think that was, it was good that we could have those discussions, and I think they understood, because I knew their processes and how things worked, that I was really being honest, and I'm not here just to make myself look good. What we're looking for is the end result. So if I have a bad idea, tell me. That's the way it should be.
So you bring up an interesting point that I think there's a lot of tourism destinations that may have a yes man agency, right? And my question is, how do you have that conversation with the agency? If you're worried that your agency might just be telling you yes all the time to keep the contract, how do you open up those lines of communication?
Um, I think you have to begin very early on, as you do with any even inter-office business relationship. You got to show that you have some integrity, that you're an honest person, that you're not that it's not your way or the highway, and you got to ask questions. I ask our agency questions all the time. They ask us questions all the time. I think it's only by working. Only by having very open discussions, and of course, a lot of this does come back to personalities. We actually have a really good agency, two really good agencies right now. Our agency of record is FKQ here in Tampa Bay. We also work with Mad Media out in Arizona, and it's just one of those things. That's, over time, we know that the people that they have there, we trust their ability. We trust in what they are seeing. We know that the things that they're bringing to us are based in research. We know what their capabilities are. And they've seen from us, in both cases now, we've been working together over 4 years. They've seen the same response from me and from my team internally here. We know what's within each other's capabilities. We know that we don't have to lie to each other or manipulate situations to get what we want. So it is a very open situation. And those are the ways that agencies stay with a client for a long time. It's especially in our business. And I don't know whether, I can't speak for other groups, other destinations, because agencies I have worked for represent lots of those agencies. And we had some similar relationships there too. It's just, it's a lot of it is human character and, how confident people are in themselves, how self-assured they are.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, good advice. Good advice for everybody that's working with an agency, as many destinations end up needing to. Let's back up and talk about Tampa Bay, though. Tampa Bay is a unique destination. You've alluded to it a little bit, but give us kind of the general overview of Tampa as a destination.
Well, it's interesting because I think if you haven't been here in the last 4 or 5 years, or if you've only just been through our airport on the way to somewhere else, I don't think you quite grasp about what this destination is. We are not like the rest of Florida, really. We don't have a beach, although we are very close to many of the best beaches in the state. We don't have one within our county borders. And we don't have Mickey Mouse or Universal. So, we have to do things a little bit differently. We do have some attractions. We have a great Busch Gardens, Zoo Tampa, Florida Aquarium. But I think we really see things, we're a Florida destination that's more like Denver or Austin or maybe even Brooklyn, where, a little bit urban, a little bit different, a little bit hip. You're going to see more guys with full sleeve tattoos than you are in, Miami Vice outfits. So it's really more of that kind of style. We have really the whole city came back to life in the last 5 or 6 years, or maybe even 7 or 8 years now, when we revitalized our waterfront, the Tampa River Walk, which is about 2.5 miles and flows through downtown and includes museums, hotels, restaurants, parks. We have a pirate water taxi that goes up and down there. People kayak, cycle. We've got a great food and a craft beer scene, like a lot of people have now. But the other thing we have that we bring to the table that other Florida destinations don't have, for the most part, is history. Ybor City in Tampa is well over 100 and something years old, and that's where the cigar industry was in the U.S. in the 20th century. That's where a lot of the mafia influences were back in the 30s and 40s. Sonny Trafficante, who ran Ybor City's mafia, supposedly was behind the Kennedy assassination. He's one of those guys that had to run from Havana when Castro took over. So we've got a lot of that Cuban history, a lot of that very different kind of funky stuff than you would see in pretty much anywhere else in Florida. Outside of St. Augustine and Tampa, there aren't many buildings that are more than about 30 or 40 years old in this state.
Wow. Sounds like diverse product, diverse attractions, diverse history. There's pros and cons to that in being in charge of marketing the destination, because yes, you've got a wonderful product to market, but you also have a lot of different attractions and stakeholders to show love to.
We do, and we are a partner-based organization, or member-based. We have almost 800 companies, from hotels to museums to mom and pop limo companies, you name it. They're all part of us. And it would be easier, I suppose, if we had one image that we could get behind. But where's the fun in that as a marketer? If you've got one thing, then your job's done for you. I think
Right.
from our perspective, it was more of a case of, well, what do we have? We actually, with our attractions, have more roller coasters than any other place in Florida, including the major theme parks of Orlando. We actually have more breweries, craft breweries, than any other, last count, than any other destination in the state. We have lots of things that we are the most of. So that's actually how we came up with our ad campaign right now, which is Florida's Most. So we can then tag whatever we may want to get in there, or whatever images. So we could talk about Florida's Most culture and show our Cuban culture in Ybor City, or right now, because of the COVID situation, where we're really trying to show fresh air and outsides, we're really talking about Florida's most wide open opportunities, or Florida's most breaths of fresh air. So it's really been that actually award-winning tag or award-winning campaign that really has united all the disparate pieces of the community, of the tourism community. It's actually been, we've been running that now about, probably about 4.5 years, and it was hugely successful until about 3 months ago. So we're hoping it will be again.
Well, you know what? It sounds like a great campaign. And on top of that, you mentioned COVID, and I want to dive into how Tampa has approached COVID and how you've tackled it as a destination. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll dive into that. Today's episode is brought to you by Relic. As many of you know, I own an advertising agency called Relic, and we work specifically with tourism destinations. If there's any of you that are struggling with what to do next, or you've tried agencies that don't specialize in tourism, or if you've been using the local flavor for years and years and you're just looking for something new, I would say give us a call. Give us the opportunity to take a look at your plans, see what you're doing. Use our tourism knowledge and industry specialty to examine everything from your brand to your tactical execution and make recommendations of how to help. We'll do that assessment for free. We'll give you those recommendations for free. And if you like what we say, maybe you can hire us to execute on those plans. So kind of a risk-free opportunity to have us take a holistic look at everything you're doing, provide some recommendations, and you can kind of see us in action. If you're interested in having us do something like that, please send me an email directly at adam@relicagency.com. I would love to set that up with my team. Okay, Patrick, let's talk about COVID. One of the things that I really wanted to have you talk about when you came on is Tampa as a destination was really proactive. And, you mentioned several of the things that you guys did to be proactive. Let's talk about some of those.
Well, it's a good point to bring up, and I'm sure there were many other destinations that did similar activities. In fact, when I see things in newsletters and online pieces now, I can see that a lot of great minds were thinking along similar paths. There was a lot of, videos that were produced, we'll be ready when you are, and all of those kind of methods. But really, for us, what we did immediately was, I guess we decided to stop being a destination marketing organization and to be a community support and community outreach company. As I said, we have 800 odd partners, and there are thousands of other businesses here that we communicate with too. We really wanted to start giving them daily updates of where things stood. We really started doing a lot more client outreach, phone calls. Obviously, a lot of people were being furloughed and laid off.
Let me ask you a quick question there, Patrick. So on these daily updates, how did you do that? Was that through email, social media, all the above?
Both. We actually we have an email database for partners and for people who've signed up for newsletters and updates. Plus, also though, we used all of our social media channels. We have obviously Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We have a Twitter account that goes under our CEO's name. And then we started working with some other local destinations on other Facebook groups, really because we knew if people are laid off, they're probably less likely to be getting their work email or less likely to be answering some of their emails. But social media was where people tended to be flocking for information. And, there was so much, and still is, so much incorrect and bad information out there. We really wanted to be able to get a forum going where people could ask us questions, where we could answer things on the fly. And, the situation, especially in the first couple of months of COVID, was so fluid. From one day to the next, it was, what is this the best thing to be doing? Is this the best thing to be doing? Oh God, don't do that, even though we told you to do it yesterday. So it was really more from updates as often as we could do. And, from our hoteliers and attractions, they laid off and furloughed a lot of their staff too. So then we really stepped in, I think, to be more of a support to them. We became, especially our convention sales team and our leisure sales teams, really became more of the outreach. They became more of the sales operations for a lot of our attractions to keep that communication going.
So I hear that, and to me, I'm glad that you mentioned that you're a partner-based organization, because I think there's a lot of different types of DMOs and structures of DMOs, and for you got these partners that are paying into having you represent them as the DMO, and so what an important time for you guys to step up and demonstrate the value they're getting from that partnership. And I've never heard of a destination actually chipping in and taking over bandwidth from hotel partners that need it, and actually taking that leap across the line and helping them sell those rooms. I mean, obviously you sell the destination, but it sounds like you guys really went kind of above and beyond to help these businesses that are struggling through the crisis remain partners that strengthen your destination as a whole.
Well, I think it's important to look at where we stand, what type of organization we are at our heart. We are we've worked very closely with these partners and with this community for a very long time. To us, the destination marketing, it's not about tourism. It's about economic development and the betterment of your own community. We're just doing it through tourism and through meetings and conventions and so on. So we've developed over years a trust that the county and the city and other partners come to us with questions. It may be outside of our normal remit, but we will get involved in whatever it needs to be that is for the betterment of our community. So it made complete sense. If our convention sales team is already going out there trying to save or reschedule meetings or to work with hotels on what availability they have, what can we do? I mean, bear in mind, some hotels, as you know, in a lot of different destinations closed, at least temporarily. Some were taken over as overflow hospitals. This was happening all over the place. So really it was about working with all of those different units to find out what their needs were at that particular time and how we could benefit them. And it was different in nearly every case. But that's, to us, is the vital and important piece, because when all this is over and we are back to what will hopefully be a much better situation, they'll remember that. Even some of those that may not survive, they may come back into other business lines, but they'll remember that we were there for them and we didn't run and hide. Or that's at least what I hope they do.
Yeah, Patrick, I'm of the belief that the work that needed to happen to facilitate the type of action your organization took happened long before COVID ever hit, because you guys had to decide who you are as an organization, who you are as a partner, and what your role is in the community. And then when the crisis hit, it wasn't, okay, what do we do now? Because of the values and the role that you had established had been established long before.
I mean, you're right. I mean, we all, or I hope everybody out there has, a crisis plan, and it probably doesn't include pandemic. I know ours didn't, but the crisis plan is similar no matter what the situation would be. But you're right. I mean, we have a CEO and a board who feel it's very important that we are community minded. We've spent years building that, and you're right. It's like so when this happened, even though we were closing down our offices temporarily and all, beginning that commute to living on Zoom calls, just as everybody else is doing, we had the steps in place, the communication tools in place. We had the lists and the knowledge and the relationships with our various partners that we could very quickly get things up and running and start moving forwards again. And, you know, being a Florida destination, you know, everybody in Florida has a decent crisis plan. We do tend to have these regular summer weather events and other things going along. So, you know, maybe, you know, we're all a little better prepared, or, you know, we've been through similar situations before. So when something bad does happen, we don't all, you know, freak out and run around in circles. It's just open up the binder, turn to page 1. Here we go. Let's see what we can. Obviously, this is, you know, something we've never had to go through before. But I don't want to be like a politician who starts patting himself on the back or saying we've done a good job. But I think our community and our partners will feel that we have been by their side and have tried to be as proactive as possible.
Awesome. Okay, you talked about your recovery campaign. You guys launched your recovery campaign on June 15th. Tell me about how you kind of prepared to launch that campaign, and then tell me what happened to kind of get in the way of it.
Well, you know, our usual summer campaigns focus on our in-state or drive markets. We're no different from just about any other Florida destination. There's only a couple, say, you know, Miami, that revolves more around international travel than the rest of us. So it's really more of the drive market anyway. So really, it was more of an extension of that market. But also, you know, technology has changed so much over the past few years. We have so many partners and vendors, whether it's, you know, Adara, Arrivalist, Conversant, working with the OTAs, you know, the Expedias and the Pricelines of the world. We get a lot more research now, so we can really see where people are coming from, how they're responding. We can really, you know, dive down, because if we go demographics, right? We used to know who our audience was. Our audience, I mean, not to put exactly a fine point on it, but our audience was predominantly female, late 30s to early 40s. We knew their household income. We knew all of that kind of stuff, just as I'm sure all of our, you know, neighboring destinations do. So that's gone out the window. Now there's two groups. There's two groups, and that's it. There is the group that's ready to travel, and the group that's locked the front door and they're not leaving the house for the next 6 months. So really, it's a whole new world that tends to be more. In fact, I just saw some research again this morning from Brand USA that's showing that it is now skewing, instead of being female heavy with being the demo, it's male heavy. It's really going more of a male demographic. So that's all changed. So we had a plan in place. We launched June 15th. All the numbers were stable. Everything looked good. July 1st, 2nd, right before July 4th weekend, obviously everything went crazy again. You know, Florida, Texas, California, some others shot through the roof. Obviously, right now, those are the poster children for the epidemic. So we really, but from June 15th to July 1, huge response. Just showed the pent-up demand that was out there, the numbers of bookings we had. You know, even if you look at our OTA booking windows now, it's like 2 days, 1 day. I mean, people just want to get out and go. It's very fast. It's very quick. So our initial results were hugely encouraging. So then we've really had to start putting the brakes on. Not on everything. I mean, you have to do some of the long-term stuff. Your SEO or SEM, all of these things have to keep going. We've kept some campaigns running with Expedia, Priceline. We're doing some stuff with Adara. Everything is highly tracked. And what's interesting is that the numbers are holding. So we can only consider how good the numbers would be if, you know, the COVID cases had stayed flat. So it is hopeful. Challenge is going to be now, I mean, we're probably guessing it's going to probably be 12 or 18 months before we get back to where we were. So now it's just, working to see how quickly we can get there and hoping things stabilize.
You mentioned something there that piqued my interest, and you said that you're starting to see that males are booking the trips more than females, and that's different from the way it was before. How did you discover that, and how do you action on that?
Well, we do track, as I said, a lot of things now that, maybe 10 years ago you couldn't track, credit card usage, cell phone usage, but also, just consumer sentiment surveys, which are really showing a big skew right now. And I'm sure psychologists could tell you more about gender differences and mindsets, but I think, it seems to be maybe the men are more open right now to getting out. I did see a piece today it showed that people who are in the more heavily affected areas were more open to getting out. It's amazing how mindsets go. But no, so we track track credit card spending trends on travel, cell phones pinging points of interest. Consumer sentiment data from 4 or 5 different people. It's very little we don't know about our audiences today compared to where we were, but it does make it much easier for us to aim at those travel intenders and be more specific rather than targeting, mass media, cable or TV, which we don't do a lot of that stuff anyway, but right now we're really not in those marketplaces. And just because we know that for once that statement about 50% of your advertising being wasted would be true.
Yeah, I love that statement. A lot of people say that 50% of their marketing budget is wasted. They just don't know which 50%, right?
Well, that's the old phrase, right? Because you throw an ad in a certain medium, and you're talking mass market. We were never a destination that did that anyway, because we don't have the huge budgets of some of our others. And I know there are some Florida ones that are, and probably around the country, who are jealous of the budgets we did have. But compared to some of the other bigger destinations, we don't have a lot, so we have to be careful. We can't just throw large amounts of money at a wall. We'll beta test. I'll beta test just about anything if we think that there's going to be something at the end of it. In fact, that's actually how we tend to work with some of the really newer, expensive products that are out there by volunteering to the guinea pig at huge discounts on the rate.
Gotcha. Well, and smart to do that, to be willing to test new technologies, new products, and that's how you find what can separate you from your competitors that might have a larger budget.
Well, exactly, and we know we do have that. We are surrounded by several large beach destinations. Also, obviously, Orlando and Kissimmee and their theme parks are right next door to us as well. Florida's not that big a state. I can go from one side to the other in a couple of hours. So, I would say it sounds like I'm uber competitive with these folks, but I will give them credit. Going back to how we moved forward in response to the pandemic, is that we got together a group of all of our neighboring destinations down the Gulf Coast of Florida and started doing weekly Zoom calls and making sure we were keeping each other informed on what was going on and best practices and who was ready to do this and who tried that. And I think for the long term, or for the long haul, I think that is really going to benefit all the destinations in the state. I think we have now become much more coordinated and much more complementary. Yeah, at the end of the day, I still want people to stay in one of my hotels versus somebody else's hotel. But if they stay in at least one of our hotels, then that's better than not getting any of them. And so I think that regional approach right now in the wake of COVID is probably the best way to go.
Yeah, I like the collaboration there. Patrick, this has been really insightful, and I just want to ask you, we have destination listeners around the world, and all of them are navigating the same challenge right now. If you could boil kind of your comments today into a clear takeaway for destinations of kind of your main piece of advice, what would that be?
I think even going back to when I was a journalist or in PR, I used to say there are a couple of things you need to have to be successful in this business, because you don't have to be a rocket scientist. You do have to surround yourself with smart people who have abilities and knowledge that you don't. You do have to have some creativity, and you do need some common sense, because you don't want to walk into bizarre situations. But you also have to have a thick skin. You have to realize that you're not always going to be successful, and not everything you do is going to work. In fact, you talk about, and so for those who are outside of the US and don't know baseball analogies, if you're the best hitter in baseball, that means you missed 6 out of 10 attempts.
Right.
You have to get the best pitcher in the game loses games, but you just have to keep your mind on the end game, and just remember that you aren't expected to know everything. Look for advice, look for mentorship.
Well, that's great advice, Patrick. I really appreciate you coming on today and sharing your experience and knowledge with our audience. I think it's been a great episode.
Well, I hope so, because if it was not as good as a couple of my friends or colleagues who I know have been on this, they'll be sure to remind me.
We got to get a group thread going where you can rate each other.
Exactly.
Well,
thanks a lot for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, same to you. Well, this has been another great episode of the Destination Marketing Podcast. If you enjoyed today's show with all the information that Patrick gave us, please make sure to leave us a rating or review. That will continue to help the podcast to grow. Thanks, everybody, and we'll talk to you next week. Okay, everybody, we've been talking a lot over the last couple of months about recovery campaigns and what that looks like. And the coronavirus has really thrown so many of us for a loop. If you have found yourself struggling to know how you're going to plan your recovery campaign, or if you're not sure if you've got the right plan in place, my team has been putting together these recovery campaigns for several destinations. We would love to take that opportunity to provide one for you. If you're interested in getting some guidance for your recovery campaign, whether it's just for us to take a look and give you some high-level recommendations, or if you're looking for someone to help you see it all the way through, we'd love the opportunity to take a look. If you're interested in having us take a look and help you come up with the right recovery campaign, please email me directly at adam@relicagency.com and we'll get you set up.